The relatively huge success of Shadow of Chernobyl of course meant that developer GSC Games went straight into production on a new Stalker game that many hoped would expand the first game's already brilliantly defined world and lore. So some might have been confused when Clear Sky was announced to be a prequel, set 8 months before the events of Shadow. Despite this seemingly odd decision, GSC's aim was still to expand upon the original game's narrative, as well as elaborating on the mechanics established in its bare-bones predecessor. One of these, I think it did really well with. The other, not so much. When I talked about Shadow, I barely went into any significant detail on the gameplay and how it handles combat. This was because I don't think there really was much to talk about. By today's standards, it's hard to view the first Stalker's shooting mechanics as anything other than antiquated. Broken stealth and bullet sponge enemies did nothing to make that entry's shootouts anything more than okay. And I reckon the developers knew that too, because Clear Sky goes above and beyond in its attempt to expand or evolve the core gameplay. The enemies still hit 4,000 times harder than you, while also taking what feels like 4,000 bullets to put down, but modern additions like weapon and armor customization, and the improvements to both the enemy and ally AI perfectly complement the game's new faction war system. In the original, some sections required the player to team up with random allies to either defend or take over an area. They were fun and provided some of the game's better combat scenarios, but typically these encounters boiled down to you doing all the work and no reward being given for assisting nearby friendlies. Clear Sky, however, builds on that idea and focuses in on the warring factions and which one you'd like to side with. It's totally fine to stay neutral, and in some cases that's possibly the better option, since pissing off a certain faction can halt your progress in the main story until you make it right with them. However, if you do skip out on teaming up with certain groups, you could miss out on plenty of opportunities for superior traders and engineers, or even the newly added fast travel guides. When participating in a group fight, it's fine to keep back and provide covering fire instead of one-man armying your way to victory, which is a refreshing change from the waste of space AI in the previous game. That's not to say they can't be a pain in the arse here, but at least they pull their weight this time around. Across the board, everything about the gameplay and visuals has been improved. From the day-night cycles to the volumetric lighting, and yes, I totally know what volumetric means. I also really dig the new emission event that infrequently forces you to seek cover, or else a powerful wave will shut your nervous system down. In the gameplay, these will kill you if not avoided. For story purposes, they're used to knock the player unconscious to teleport them to a new narrative beat. Which brings us to the game's plot and the titular Clear Sky. As well as being a great metaphorical title for a nuclear-themed game, Clear Sky are a team of researchers who are in the zone to understand the unnatural phenomenons taking place within. As a story wraparound, it's a very clever hook. The first game's strongest asset was how compelling the zone was as a concept. So instead of focusing the narrative on some quest to kill a random guy with a pretty forced and generic twist ending for bad measure, why not center an aspect of the story on finding out more about the fascinating world? On paper, it's brilliant. In practice, it's sort of subpar. Sometimes uneven pacing or a lack of narrative cohesion can be excusable if the characters pick up the slack, which is unfortunate for Clear Sky because I struggle to remember the main character's name, let alone any of the other characters relevant to the plot. It's made worse because, like I said earlier, the game puts a lot of focus on the faction warfare system, so you do a lot of talking to a lot of different people, and I just don't give a shit about any of them. This might be a little bit unfair, but in a world where I've played that other nuclear radiation-based RPG, the absence of even one memorable character really stands out as a disappointment. The Fallout games are a treasure trove of memorable quests and quest givers. Even the Metro series, which also features a post-apocalyptic vibe with a heavy dose of nuclear fallout created by a Ukrainian dev team, manages to throw in a few somewhat intriguing characters and narrative concepts. None of this is helped by the fact that Clear Sky reuses pretty large sections of Shadow of Chernobyl's landscapes. Unmemorable characters existing in already established areas just seems to make them feel even less impressive. In theory, it'd be nice to see the striking world we already know used to further build the characters, but the quest types and NPCs are barely different from the previous game, and that makes playing it right after playing Shadow a lot more dull than you'd hope it would be. That all said, I don't think it's a lack of skill or laziness that led to Clear Sky's disappointing story. In Shadow, the mission structure was much more straightforward. Someone wants you to do something, so you go and do it. Not the most exciting, but it got the job done. Sky, on the other hand, seemed to get a little too ambitious for its own good. A lot of its missions intertwine, which in concept can go a long way towards bringing the zone to life, as well as adding a touch of realism to the random characters' interpersonal relationships. What it does in this case, though, is lead to confusion and fosters a disinterest in any of the faction's motives and conflicts. The solitary survival experience that Shadow excelled at is hit the hardest by Sky's loftier aspirations towards building up the world's inhabitants, but they still do manage to salvage the oppressive atmosphere and haunting soundscape that remains a hallmark of the franchise. Clear Sky is often remembered as the radiation-riddled red-headed stepchild of the original Stalker trilogy, and while I do not support the abuse of redheads, I can't say the sentiment towards this prequel isn't totally unearned. An unpleasant amount of small technical glitches and moments of difficulty that only seem to exist to take the piss help me understand why most Stalker fans consider Clear Sky to be the worst of the three. However, Clear Sky is still fantastic at encouraging exploration and, by extension, immersion. And despite feeling more like a big expansion over a brand new entry in the series, the gameplay depth added by the faction mechanics throw in a nice strategic layer to an already layered world. Many of this game's new additions also set up the sequel, Call of Pripyat, to refine the mechanics even further, which led to what many call the high point of the series. I guess now that Stalker 2 is out, we'll have to consider whether that title is retained. While Clear Sky may not achieve the same level of critical acclaim as its predecessor, it still offers a deeper understanding of the lore, enriched gameplay, and a haunting world that is equally as beautiful as it is terrifying, all of which resonates perfectly with the series' themes of war, survival, and the fear of the unknown. The series' legacy continues to influence the genre today, and for better or worse, Clear Sky is very much a part of that legacy. Thanks for checking out this video. What do you think about Clear Sky? Do you think it deserves its reputation as a step down from Shadow of Chernobyl? Or do the refined mechanics make this the preferable post-apocalyptic playground? Feel free to let us know any and all of your thoughts in the comments. For those that want to support us even further, we appreciate any and all of the likes we get on the video, and if anyone wants to support us even further, we do have a Patreon. We don't lock off any content there, but if you do want to support us making future content, that is the place to go. Thanks again for watching, and cheers.